think we're ready to go ahead and get started. Everybody's good to go? All right, welcome to this month's Nuisance Abatement Board meeting. We're gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. And Detective, you wanna start us with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Did everybody, well, I guess let's go ahead and call the roll first.
Mr. Lindsay?
Present.
Mr. Fanoff?
President.
Mr. Slotnick?
Present.
Miss Yukna, excuse me, absent. Mr. Pemper?
Present.
And Chair Foreman.
Present.
Thank you, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Is there any witnesses that are gonna be speaking tonight?
Maybe Eric, I guess.
Do we need to do a swearing? Yeah, go ahead.
Do you swear or affirm that you will tell the truth and the whole truth? And please state your name for the record. Spell it, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, do we get a chance to review last month's minute, and do we have a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from our April meeting.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Hearing none, we'll move on to the first case of this evening, which is case number 210802, 2935 North Federal Highway, America's Best. Detective, start us out with, the status update.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I just got off the phone with Mr. Patel. He had a last-minute emergency pop up, so if we need to, we can speak to him on the phone. However, I've been in constant communication with him over the last month. I don't think he would need to give testimony or anything today, but I just want to let you know that I've been in communication with him. For the property, we have had, over the last 30 days, 15 total police calls for service, 2 of which could be categorized as nuisance related. And of those 15 calls for service, 4 of them resulted in officers actually authoring reports. I went through and read each of the reports. One of them, which was not nuisance related, was simply a warrant arrest. The second was a management initiated trespassing call, which is exactly what we had asked the owner to do. The first of the nuisance related incidents was a resident or a tenant of the hotel had allegedly ordered some marijuana to be delivered to the hotel. He allegedly knew this person. The person came to the hotel. There was some sort of dispute, and allegedly the person who was with this other person ended up taking some property of that tenant, who then notified police. I spoke to the detective who's investigating the case. It's still active and open. I don't want to kind of disclose too much, but in a nutshell, there wasn't anything that I had deemed that would be the responsibility, so to speak, of the hotel, or any failure on their part for what had occurred based on what we know now. The fourth and final, which is the second nuisance-related incident, was a domestic battery where 2 occupants of the hotel room knew each other, and a dispute began inside the room, and one of the parties alleged that the other party had a firearm. Again, the same thing. I don't know that there was any action that the hotel could have taken to prevent that. I spoke to Mr. Patel about both of those instances. We had a discussion and kind of some brainstorming as to if anything could be done to prevent those instances from occurring. And he was following and had been following the police recommendations. So in my opinion, there was nothing that could be done on the hotel's part to proactively prevent those from occurring. So that is the status on the America's Best property.
And we just keep keep the jurisdiction there, and just you suggest us keep rolling forward with the same monitoring.
Correct. My suggestion at this point would be to maintain jurisdiction. Based on these two incidences, depending, I guess, what occurs within the investigative process for the robbery that was noted, we'll see if there's any further additional police recommendations. But as of now, at its face value, I don't see any need for any enhancements now.
May I ask a quick question?
Yeah,
Just
go ahead.
clarification.
Sure.
Well, what is it that makes that turns a call into a report?
It could be a variety of factors, but just as an example, most of the calls that came in were a suspicious incident, a disturbance. It could be a loud music call. It could be somebody in the parking lot who looks suspicious to someone else, and the officers would arrive and say nobody's there. Right? They would just code that out and say, no report necessary. That's basically the sum of most of them. Whenever there's any kind of action that an officer needs to take, any kind of enforcement action whatsoever, generally speaking, that would cue them to author a report. So when we say calls for service, there's 15 actual things that have occurred that require any kind of documentation. 4.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All good. We're going to move on then to the second case of this evening, which is case number 220401 301 Southwest 2nd Street, DBA 00. Is that right? 00 Chateau. It's all good. Go ahead, detective. Start us out, I guess, with the status.
Sure.
I know there's a new case.
So the owner was mailed by certified mail notice of tonight's meeting. Mr. Maggot is here today, the owner and representative of the establishment, and police-related incidents over the past 30 days total 2, with 0 being nuisance-related. I reviewed the calls for service for the 2, and I say they're police-related, and that's kind of almost a stretch because they were simply audible alarms. Could be a fire alarm, could be just a burglar alarm. But those occurred on the 7th of the month and the 9th of the month, but both were unfounded. So basically, throughout the course of the last 30 days, they've had almost 0 incidents at the establishment. And just a review, when we were here for our status hearing, there was a fair amount of calls for service, and obviously the criteria that met for the establishment to be before the board. And, in the last 30 days, I would say to have 0 incidents, 0 alarms. I spoke to patrol officers who work that area and have stated that the nightclub is very slow, that certainly there's no calls for service. Things have been very quote unquote quiet. I've been in constant communication with Mr. Magid and went by the property yesterday and met with Mr. Magid, and for the board to see on both the north, south, east, and west of the property, the City of Fort Lauderdale nuisance abatement jurisdiction signs were posted. He had some other security guards that were there. We talked about the wanding that was occurring, so the patrons were searched before they go in. Just for the board's information, Mr. Maggot did follow through and pay the fine that was levied, and I am in receipt of that. So as of now, the status is that the police recommendations seem to be working. The nightclub is very calm. There's been no nuisance-related incidents since then. My recommendation would be to maintain jurisdiction, and I will continue to follow up with Mr. Maggot and make sure that we maintain the status quo that we've had over the last 30 days.
That's great. Okay. If nothing from the board, we're just going to move on to the last item of the evening, which is board discussion. Does anybody have anything they want to bring up? Yeah, go ahead.
Another question. So, how long do we maintain jurisdiction for normally? Let's say if once someone is in compliance, is there such a thing as normal?
Yeah, detective. How long do we typically do jurisdiction for?
I believe I'm just trying to circle back to my I noticed the recommendations. I believe on this property, it was our intent to maintain for up to a year.
That's pretty typical.
I think some properties have gone beyond that if it warrants it, if they have continued nuisance related incidents, such as the first property. I think that property's been under board control, certainly prior to my time here. And it may have surpassed the year mark, but essentially, at the board's discretion, as long as, justification is warranted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you.
You want to go ahead and just introduce yourself to everybody?
What's that?
Introduce yourself to everybody, say your name and.
Yeah, Avi Pemper, that's my name. I'm originally from Israel, and then I lived in New York for 30 years. I'm married to a guy. He's a doctor. He works part-time. I take care of the house and the cat and some other stuff. And we've been here 4.5 years now. We live by the beach, and we love it here. It's like, I had a hard time imagining what it would be like living not in New York because, I was such a New Yorker, I love New York. And then once we moved here, I was like, I asked, my spouse, I was like, what took us so long, So, yeah, so that's,
There's something to be said for not having snow anymore.
yeah, that's, that's, it's not, maybe I'll go visit for that, but, yeah. No,
And
it's
to
nice
answer your
here.
question,
I like the pace of life that, for me, that I have.
Welcome, Avi.
Thank you.
It's good to have you.
And to answer your question, at last month's status hearing, the board retained jurisdiction over this property for 1 year from the date of the order.
Yeah, that seems to be pretty typical. So, okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Hearing none, this evening's meeting is adjourned. Thank you guys all for coming. Appreciate you coming, Eric. And we'll see you guys next month.
John, are we meeting in June?
Believe so. June? Yep. We'll see you in June.